possible to be
what's wrong
even
with
out of your parents'
Singapore.
house.
I think
like
the
your
question
friends.
should be what's wrong with Singaporeans.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look for solutions then.
Yeah.
Since we have identified the problem, and I don't think it's just pertaining to the young people. I think the old people are like that. But yet, the old people not too long ago were more gracious, were more considerate to one another. What has happened in between to make us, to condition us to this present state of affairs?
The way Singapore, or the way we've been controlled, I think have a part to play as well. Because one of the things I always remember, as I grew up, there seems to be a veil of freedom when we're out of the country. And that freedom lies in the fact that you do something that normally being controlled in your country you don't do. For example, if you don't chew gum and you suddenly go and chew gum and you start chewing everywhere.
Right,
Not that I
right,
do
yeah.
that, but there is all that I saw when Singaporeans outside of the country. For example,
Does that make
in
them behave
buffet,
better?
they grab the buffet like they have not eaten for years. They've been released from prison. It's really ugly. And these are the Singaporean tour group when you go overseas. You don't see that when they're in Singapore. But as part of that, they realize that there seems to be a sense of control. Therefore, they moderate their behavior.
Wait, hang on. You're saying that Singaporeans overseas grab the buffet and in Singapore they don't?
Well, they do, but then
They do.
I do see worse kind of like rushing. Although I don't see that much here in Singapore that are that ugly. I'm just compare the degree of it. That seems to be
I think we go to
quite
different
shocking.
places to eat.
I'm offering only one part that I feel. To me, I'm just creating a sort of interesting dilemma here. Is that
Are
the
you now saying
control
that the
could
Singaporean
cause.
overseas is also ugly?
No, I'm not saying Singapore overseas are ugly. I think it's just back to our culture and the upbringing, the what we have been through conditioning it. But what I'm saying is that the control that put on us make us more of a rebel. When we are overseas, we try to do things that we won't dare to do in the country
Yeah,
because
right.
we know that we're actually going to get fined.
Are you suggesting then that because our whole life we're conditioned like this by rules and regulations, and there is an intolerance for error, in turn we have now become a people that are very intolerant?
Even a lot of times now, I think as a youngster or as a youth, when we give up a seat to the elder, do it come it naturally?
Yeah.
Because
you're
there's
told.
people watching, like you know that you're sitting in a located seat for the elder, and you know that many people will start talking about you or maybe storm you, yeah, because eyes is everywhere. So a lot of times our behavior doesn't come naturally. You're forced to do it, Then sometimes, I think that kind of liberty, right? When we are more liberated or more freed, we kind of behave in the way we want to be, and maybe that's where we become more ugly, yeah, because that's our very natural state, yeah.
So okay, but I think it's wrong to suggest that competitiveness in itself is bad, right? In order to continue to succeed, we need to be competitive. So in the face of having to live with being competitive, how do we go about relaxing and becoming more gracious?
I think what Kenneth has asked about moving forward, for our generation, the millennial generation, and because of postmodernism where the individuals are highlighted, it's all about me and my experience. I realized that in my own journey or talking to other people, the most powerful motivator is when something is done for you and you get a positive experience of it. It takes within a day someone to do something courteous or something good to you to make you feel good. And then you are
want to do
motivated to do something
You're right.
good for another person.
A lot more can be done. The government can play a more important role in this, like community centers. They could have more events, get-togethers, and then you encourage these people to join, and then all of a sudden they realize that, oh, you have been my neighbor for the last 20 years, but I have not met you. And then they start striking a conversation, then they get to understand each other better. I think this is important. I think second point is in education. I don't know about the educational system now. How good is there a subject on moral education? Do they have?
I think they still have.
There was, and then
There
they took
was,
it away.
yeah.
I think that now it's back again.
I think so.
Yeah.
That should
Civics.
be, that should be put back again because that's
Yeah.
important because you have to start educating the young.
Yeah.
And so when they grow up, they become more gracious.
So if you look at the gamma, I think sometimes part of it is also the message you get across, and I think yeah, I understand the need to you know, survival, sustainability, continuous growth. But sometimes I think it's good to actually allow the message of people who fail and not make failure such a big thing. And sometimes government can do a lot more to portray positive messages. Then on the home level, I really think it goes back to the home, to the parents, how the upbringing. Because I think I brought up a family that is actually through that way of upbringing that I'm who I am today. It's part of your family, your upbringing. So to be gracious, to be nice, to be kind truly from your heart and be natural comes from your upbringing. I think that I cannot stress any more than the importance of that. Then that goes down to the individual. As you start to realize the journey that you're going to go through as a human being, spirituality as well. I mean, it's basically your own pathway to learn about being kind, being gracious, and you know, helping other people. All that will come naturally. So I think that to me it forms that triangle, the three-part relationship to a better society.
Okay, thank you, Tony. How about you, Moni?
I think act of kindness sometimes is being portrayed as a very serious thing to do. But I think if the RC, you know, or the town council can come up with more creative ways to reach out to the community in a more approachable ways, I think it's definitely workable. You know, yeah, I think that's something that attract the youth at this age. You know,
Not just providing free food, but also to entertain them, to keep them happy. I think
Kind of
to
thing,
take
yeah.
take the minds off all
Yeah,
the,
because
yeah,
actually, you know, Singapore
yeah.
is known to be very kind in the sense that, you know, a lot of good deeds have been done. The donation from Singaporeans to the needies are quite big. You didn't realize that?
Yeah, that is true. I think one of the measures or one of the things that we can do to help us move forward is to help people see needs beyond themselves. You know, whether is it going overseas to see the needs of people who are less privileged, or Singaporeans who are less privileged, and understanding how blessed we are, how privileged we are, that would help people think more of others rather than ourselves. And I think maybe a second idea that I have, or a wish that I have, is that Singaporeans will be able to spend more time with their family, quality time as well as quantity, both in the immediate as well as the extended family. I think that's something I really treasure about my own family. I think the third thing I learned from my own personal journey is the great need for us to learn to love ourselves or to appreciate who we are. I think growing up as a youngster in my primary school and secondary school, there are experiences that shaped my life. Not so good experiences because of the stress, like we mentioned, of the education system, and also certain social experiences which I learned to, or rather I tell myself things that are degrading of myself, and I become a very, very hurtful person, or person with carrying a lot of hurts, and naturally in some situations I have the tendency to hurt others as well.
Well said.
That is true.
Okay, so if I can just very quickly summarize, I think right from the top, if we speak of the government, now we are talking about not only the government but everybody else, the ability to make mistakes and be forgiven for making those mistakes rather than for punishing you. So we have to ease up on that. The other thing is also to look at the positives rather than the negatives, to try and reinforce the examples of positive behavior, whether it is public or whether it is in school or whether it is in home, and try and focus on that rather than the shortcomings. And I think that we also spoke about the need to look outside ourselves, not be so self-centered, but to look at the people outside and see what we can give them. And the importance of community and reinforcement is also very important, where you have to build, you don't live alone, and you have to work within the milieu of a family, a close family, or as Charles mentioned, the larger community, so that there is a greater sense of affinity and interaction between people, so that they feel more as one family or one people. And if we have to look at ourselves, then we should not look at ourselves as someone who is trying to compete and trying to win all the time. We have to learn to love ourselves, to think positively about ourselves, and in that way feel good about everybody around us. Okay, so there's hope for the Singaporean. Good night.